Hello, my little friends. Welcome to the second part of the In Character 1000 subscribers Q&A video. Today I'll be going over the questions that you wonderful people have asked me, and I certainly hope you will enjoy it. Without further ado, the first question is from Glossy who asks, "What is your first name?" Well, I think I mentioned this at one point quite a while back, but I do have quite a few names. The most recent one I can recall would be Clement, though I don't have any particular mind toward what I'm called. Oh, what's that saying? As long as it's not late for dinner, I believe. Something like that. But, yes, Clement is perfectly fine, or any other you come up with. And Glossy also asks, "What would you do if you met someone who was utterly terrified, and who would never let up being scared? Not even friendly talking would break them out of their fear trance." If I met someone who I couldn't get to calm down, I would let them be under most circumstances. But assuming they're lost or injured, I would see if I could find out which town they came from. My abode is far enough away from most cities that them being out this far could warrant a carry home. So, if need be, I would at least provide them that much. That said, I really do loathe to be around frightened little folk, if only for their sake. It makes me feel upset with myself that I'm causing someone else grief, but that is generally what I would do with a scared human. Avoid them if possible, and if they seem to be in trouble, I would take them to their hometown or the nearest town. Thank you for your questions, Glossy. I appreciate them. Let's see, next, Primrose Bard Lichen asks, "What is your favorite way to care for the tiny listener and for self-care? I'd love to know how you all relax or activities you find relaxing." When caring for my tiny friends, if it's just a general relaxation I'm going for, cuddles are the best. I do like holding someone in my arms and letting them know that they're okay and that I've got them. However, in regards to caring for someone on a more personal level, like tending to their everyday needs, I do enjoy cooking for them as well. It's arguably one of very few things that can be shared between us without being unnecessarily awkward to manage. As for self-care, I suppose I have been drawing again recently. It helps me relax and generally, it helps me get my feelings out onto paper without having to write about them and feel all of my negative feelings all over again. Otherwise, sometimes I'll go on walks or visit other towns. I like seeing what little our folk get up to. I would also read more, but alas, my size dictates that books are limited without a magnifying glass. With that, thank you, Primrose Bard Lichen. Next, Jelly Kid 66 asks, what are the 1 or 2 must-have items you'd bring to a beach day get-together? If I were going to the beach, I think I would bring something along to eat if I needed it. And if not, I might just bring whatever my little friends are taking along. Though, I suppose I might bring sandals, if I could keep them tucked out of the way during the get-together. I think having something to keep me from leaving a trail of sandy footprints back to my house can be quite handy. The second question from Jelly Kid 66 is, if you were to have a platform to make content, what kind of content would you make? It could be videos, photography, etc. I think if I could, I would create some kind of music or something. Perhaps I could create a little band and get a few of my little friends to join me, and we can make music in the forest and post it to some kind of music platform or something. Or perhaps I could do some sort of storytelling or something. I'm not too sure, if I'm honest, but I'd certainly like to do something akin to that if I ever got the opportunity. Thank you very much, Jelly Kid 66, for your questions. Next, Cairo the Fudanshi asks, do you enjoy licking us? What do we taste like? I would say I enjoy licking you little folk, yes. So long as you're enjoying yourself as well, it's a pleasant sensation on my tongue, both texture and taste-wise. Plus, of course, it's nice being able to be so close with a very dear friend. And I enjoy getting to indulge my friends in a bit of unconventional contact. As for what you taste like, it's a warm taste, a bit like sweet potatoes, perhaps, mixed with rosemary. I'm not sure. I haven't thought terribly hard on it before. Seems I'll have to give it a more thorough investigation at some point. The second question that Cairo the Fudanshi asks is, how big are we compared to you? And the exact size depends on the person, but I'd say that the majority of you little folk span roughly from the base of my palm to about halfway up my fingers. So, not terribly large, but certainly not too small. Large enough for me to appreciate just how beautiful each and every one of you is. And finally, Cairo the Fudanshi asks, what is your favorite anime if you watch it? I do not watch television due to my size, unfortunately. But a very dear little friend of mine has told me many wonderful things about a show, Doro Hedoro, I believe. It apparently stars a lizard man, or a man who is part lizard. And from what I hear, it has a very fun power system which handles overpowered characters well, in part due to its usage of consequences and character death through the series. It seems very interesting. I think I would give it a watch if I could. Thank you, Cairo the Fudanshi, for your questions. And next we have Night the Glitch, who asks, what would your reaction be if someone, totally not me, snuck into your house, snuck into your kitchen, and stole some food? Well, I admit I might be a bit confused. I'd be happy to make you something if you'd like, my little friend. Though, of course, if you prefer to sneak about and make off with some crumbs from my kitchen, you're more than welcome to. Just please try not to hide in whatever food you take from without alerting me first. I'd rather not risk any close calls with someone so special. Next question from Night the Glitch is, have you ever had to intentionally crush or kill a tiny? And I think this may come as a surprise, but no. Despite my size, I'm quite light. So even cases of accidental squishings don't tend to cause more damage than a few days could fix if you rest your body. Thankfully, of course, the town I'm located nearest to is quite peaceful most of the time, what with the local mage keeping most arcane issues to a minimum, and the community watch being quite handy as well. And, of course, most little folk are intimidated enough by my size that I can simply threaten them with a bad time if the situation absolutely calls for it. And the final question from Night the Glitch is, what is your favorite snack besides us? I'm not too sure, to be honest. My dietary habits don't often lend to snacking, as you probably think of it. I suppose a funny answer might be a good tree or two. Though, I suppose that isn't entirely inaccurate. I do grow a quite large leafy plant in my backyard that has a quite nice taste to it. It's a subtle spiciness, I would say, and it goes well in many meals I make. It's a bit like a giant version of spinach, just spicier. Thank you, Night the Glitch, for your questions. And next we have Neon Cherry 64, who asks, how common is it for giants to be kind to small folk like you are? Do you know any other friendly or unfriendly giants? I don't know too many other giants, unfortunately, though the ones I do know tend to be quite nice. One giant I know who lives in the mountains has claimed her primary reason for being there is simply to transport unwary hikers who got lost or otherwise are in peril back down the mountain. That in mind, if I had to wager, I'd say about 50% of giants are nice and the other 50% are less so, with perhaps 1 out of every 100 or so giants being particularly mean to smaller folk, and the rest of the less friendly giants simply avoiding smaller civilizations when possible. Let's see, next. Oh, thank you, Neon Cherry 64, for your question. Now, next, the Nova Wood Pack asks, what does the listener taste like, and do you ever have a hard time eating them? I suppose I've already answered the first part of this question previously, but to answer the second part, yes, I do quite often find myself wanting to put one of my little friends into my mouth or my stomach. Of course, when I'm hungry, I don't let my friends get too close to my throat out of concern for their own safety, but I do sometimes request a visit from one of my little friends with the express intent to have their taste on my tongue, or to have their warmth and weight inside my belly. Thank you for your question, Nova Woodpack. Next, Luna Bear asks, what is your favorite thing to draw? A plant, an animal, a food? I do like landscapes, I think. It's not exactly difficult for me to get good angles for them. And plus, nature is very relaxing to draw, in my opinion. The shapes are quite enjoyable, and especially nice since they don't have to be perfect on paper. Although I will say I've come to enjoy trying my hand at architecture drawings as of recent. I'm not very good at it, but it's certainly a fun way to spend my time. Thank you, Luna Bear, for your question. And finally, Victory 3002 has asked quite a few questions, and I've done my best to condense them a bit. I do hope you enjoy. The first question Victory 3002 asked is, what challenges do giants face in a world designed for smaller beings? Oh goodness. What challenges do giants not face? I think the deepest challenges I face largely revolve around managing to not trample everything around me. I am fortunate enough to live quite a ways away from any large towns, far enough that most little folk won't be nearby me by accident. And the trees and mountains surrounding my abode tower over even me, so where I live is very much suitable for myself. That said, visiting little folk towns is a bit like if you were to try navigating a flower field without stepping on a single flower. It's certainly possible, but it requires some careful footwork. Plus, I've found many people don't have the most positive reaction to a sudden, looming face gazing down upon them. So taking care not to frighten any smaller folk with my presence is certainly a challenge in itself. The second question, Victory 3002 asks, is how do giants feel about their size compared to others? And how does your size affect your interactions with others, both within and without, or within and outside of the giant community? I certainly don't speak for every giant, but I believe that our size is something incredibly unique and important, and it certainly gives us the ability to interact with the world in a way that others can't. For example, giants of my size can provide a distinct physical barrier between smaller folk and possible threats such as enraged dragons or monsoons or even other giants. And in that regard, we're quite fortunate to be so big. However, because giants are so big, I know I've mentioned this previously, but we are quite solitary. And I think that's something smaller folk have that larger creatures such as myself can't have as easily. That sense of connectedness and community, as many of us are quite keenly aware of our impact on those smaller than us, and how many of us in one area might cause issues for those nearby. So it's a bit of a give and take, I'd say. The final question from Victory 3002 is, can you share any interesting experiences or insights about being a giant? Well, I would say that giants, because of how large we are, we tend to have periods of a sort of pseudo-hibernation throughout the year. For me, I don't necessarily sleep during these points, but I do become quite sluggish, and I move around very little to sort of run off the food that I've eaten previously and not consume any more to let the world kind of catch up, I suppose. And during this time, my stomach is almost completely empty and is in fact quite safe to stay in for hours or even days at a time. Of course, when this hibernation is over, I am ravenous, and I try to make sure I've got a small garden outside to eat from, because it's not a smooth transition from not at all hungry to very hungry, and with varying levels of sort of hungry, fairly hungry, moderately hungry. It's almost like a switch from not wanting to eat anything to wanting to eat everything. Something else I will say is that many giants, myself included, tend to get larger as we age. Not all giants will grow the same amount, of course, but for example, when I was born, I would say, about the size of an adult human. And of course, many, many years later, I'm large enough to hold an adult human in my hands with ease. Of course, some giants are even larger than me, and are big enough that they spend almost all of their time sleeping or, at the very least, resting, sort of forming parts of the natural landscape as mountains or the like. And meanwhile, others reach their maximum height at barely 3 times the size of your average human, if even that. Though I will say I believe most smaller giants are more commonly referred to as half-giants or demi-giants, even if they are full-blooded giants. Their size, it's easier to call them partial giants, half-giants, demi-giants, so on and so forth, because it gives you an idea of what exact size you'll be looking at. With that, thank you, Victory 3002, for your questions. That will be the end of my piece of this Q&A. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to speaking with you all again very, very soon. It is an honor to get to celebrate 1,000 subscribers with you. And, of course, if you have any questions that I neglected to answer, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below the video. And they will be answered there. Thank you all so much for joining me. And I hope you have a wonderful day, night, morning, evening, and so on. Goodbye for now, my little friend.